दोस्तों सलाम अलैकुम नमस्ते हक मौजूद वॉशिंगटन डीसी मां आहियां मुश्ताक राजपर फ्रेंड्स ऑफ सिंध सोसाइटी जे प्लेटफॉर्म तां ही असांजो ॿियो लाइव सेशन आहे ऐं असां चाहियो पिए त जेके सिंध खां ॿाहिरि दोस्त रहूं था उन्हनि खे कंहिं तरह सां सिंध जे इश्यूज़ ते सिंध जे अदब ॿोली सकाफ़त तारीख़ ऐं उन सां वाबस्ता जेके माण्हू जेके कमु कंदा रहिया आहिनि ऐं कमु कनि था पिया उन्हनि खे संभाव कीअं ॻंढिजे हिकिड़ो कचहरी कजे हिकिड़ो डायलॉग जेको आहे सिंध जे मामलनि ते सिंध जी ॿोलीअ ते ऐं सिंध जे किताबनि ते शुरू कजे सो उहा जेका कोशिशि असां शुरू कई हुई गुज़िरियल महीने खां वठी ऐं पहिरियों कचहरी कईसीं डॉक्टर फहमीदा हुसैन सां अॼु उन सिलसिले जी असांजी ॿी गॾिजाणी आहे ऐं उन में असांखे असांजे लाइ तमामु घणी ख़ुशी जी ऐं फ़ख़ुर जी ॻाल्हि आहे त हिंदुस्तान जे ॿिनि नामवर राइटर्स चओ रिसर्चर्स जेके आहिनि उन्हनि असांखे जॉइन कयो आहे पुणे मां असांखे जॉइन कयो आहे साज़ अग्रवाल ऐं बम्बई मां असांखे जॉइन कयो आहे नंदिता भावनाणी थैंक यू वेरी मच बोथ ऑफ यू ऐं मूंसां गॾु सेंट लुइस मां असांजा दोस्त सुहेल अंसारी जेके आहिनि उहे बि मौजूदु आहिनि हू विल जॉइन एंड विच में को सुवाल वग़ैरह पुछणु चाहे त कंदो सो थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर बोथ ऑफ यू जॉइनिंग अस भली कार वेलकम चऊं था
थैंक यू मुश्ताक तव्हांजी वॾी वॾी महिरबानी जेको तव्हां असांखे घुरायो आहे जीअं मूं चयो थोरा न थोरा मूं ते तव्हां मारूड़नि जा thank you very much for having us here. It feels lovely also to see you and to be able to talk like this face to face, even though we can't be there in person.
Right.
Thank you Mushtaq, thank you Sohail. It's just wonderful to be here. Thanks very much for calling us.
No, wonderful. So I think so we can start a conversation with Saz because her latest book, her last book came out just a few months back, the Sindhi Tapestry, the stories. I think over 50, 60 people have contributed in that book. Saz, you've been writing on Sindh now for almost 10 years, I guess. The first time we met, it was in Karachi Literature Festival, where you had come and speak at the launch of your book, The Stories of Lost Homeland, which was named in India as a vanished homeland.
Yeah.
So how
was that? 2013, February 2013 is when we met. Right. So, and we all of us remember that very well. My whole family, we remember you so fondly.
Yeah. So that was indeed your first book, right?
Yeah.
On Sindh, and then you have produced at least 3 more books.
Yeah, a few more. And this one which you mentioned, which was released in January, is actually not written by me. There's many whom write on Sindh. So they are experts on Sindh, like Nandita and Rita Kothari and some others. But we were also very lucky to get people from across the diaspora with different kinds of experiences and, put together. And I felt Sindhi, identity is always a very complex subject. And for Sindhis, it's even more so because, and especially, whether you're a Sindhi from India or from Pakistan or from Spain or, the identity is very complex. So I thought it would be nice to put together ideas about it. And that's what happened. And I'm very happy with the results.
And how has been the response from?
It's been very, very flattering. We've had a lot of attention, a lot of coverage from the Indian press, which, everybody's responded, lots of messages, and it's been very gratifying.
So is the book now available in India and Pakistan, or?
Unfortunately, not available in Pakistan. It's on Amazon, so it's available globally, but I'm not sure whether you can get it. I'm not sure whether you can get it in Pakistan. I don't really know.
And the book came out during this pandemic, so obviously not many.
So in fact, Mushtaq, you have a wonderful essay in it. Yours is one of the really special ones.
Oh,
so thank you so much for making the effort to write that.
It was
I think a lot of us who read it, including the other contributors and the readers, learned so much because we don't know Even if you're a Sindhi in India, you have no idea what it's like to be a Sindhi in Sindh. And that was extremely interesting. Sorry, what were you asking me?
No, I said, I mean, because the book came out of the pandemic, and so not
Yeah.
many inaugurations, launches, and discussions on the book.
Yeah.
So great.
Well, for
Yeah.
me, it was kind of a lifesaver during the pandemic because we couldn't go out, we couldn't do anything, and having this project and being engaged with so many different people and so these meaningful connections, it really was a big lifesaver for me.
Awesome, awesome. Nandita, tahan tha achun. I mean, I met you in Karachi during a Sindhi media conference held by Federal Urdu University, and you came
Right.
उते तव्हां आयो उते तव्हां हिकिड़ो पेपर पढ़ियो ऐं उन खां पोइ मूं तव्हां जे बारे तव्हां जो लिखणियूं जेके हुयूं उन्हनि खे सर्च करणु शुरू कयो. I guess
Acha.
that was your second visit to Sindh.
No, that was actually my fourth visit to Sindh. Fourth visit
Wow,
to Pakistan, third visit to Sindh.
awesome.
Yeah.
So he जेको तव्हां जो किताब आयो सिंधनामा, which is
जी.
amazing and a must read for all of Sindhis and people who want to really know about Sindh and Sindh's history and its
Thank
culture.
you.
Like, how did you come up with the idea of writing a book, Sindhnama?
So actually, Sindhnama was produced by both me and Geeta. Geeta Simoes, my co-creator of the book, and Geeta she was born in Karachi because her mother's family never left. So her mother would keep visiting Karachi every summer, and Geeta would continue to visit well after partition. And she was very intimately familiar with Sindhi music, Sufism, handicrafts, textiles, and so on. And she said we must showcase this to the world. We must also give our children an idea of what they have inherited. So she was very keen to do a coffee table book. She used to design coffee table books. So this whole idea of doing an illustrated book on Sindhi culture was clearly Geeta's. So then we teamed up, and she was like, "What shall we put in the book?" So I was thinking in terms of images. So I told her, "Okay, what will look good in images? We can have monuments, we can have textiles, handicrafts. He who, oh, सॼी list ठाही उन्हनि खे ॾिनी. Oh, list पढ़ी वो चए थी त but Nandita, where are the people? We have to have people in the book. Now, on my own, I had wanted to do a book about the history of Sindh, and all these various facets and personalities, etc. So then I got the brainwave, and we married her idea with my idea, and it just worked in my mind. To my mind, it worked just very well. So that's how it came about. Unfortunately, Geeta could not live to see the end result. She could not see the published book because she passed away too soon. So that was a huge loss for us.
Yeah, तव्हां मूंखे ॿुधायो, मूंखे यादि पए थो. That was a very sad part. But look,
जी.
her legacy lives on. I mean, what a
जी.
brilliant idea. She will live on in her book. And I hope you will not give up the idea of writing on history of Sindh.
No, बिल्कुल ना. No, not at all. अञा मतलब अॻिते घणो ई कमु बाक़ी आहे.
So जेकॾहिं in addition to जेको तव्हां चयो उन खां अलावा जेकॾहिं तव्हां थोरो वरी ब्रीफ पंहिंजे किताब जे बारे में असांखे ॿुधायो त जेको सिंधनामा किताब आहे उन जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट इहो आहे, that's how it came,
That's how it came about.
came about. ऐं मूं जेको उन में उनखे मूं ॾिठो, जेको पढ़ियो, काफ़ी सारा ॾाढा फैसिनेटिंग उन में क़िस्म शयूं आहिनि. ख़ासि तौर ते जीअं उन चयो त वेयर आर द पीपल, त उहो जेको तव्हां एस्पेक्ट खणी आया आहियो, I mean, the brief bios, profiles of people. Oh my God! I mean, एॾा सारा characters.
जी. And they had to edit. मुश्ताक तव्हांखे छा ॿुधायां केतिरो असां हिन किताब में कोन विधो आहे. केतिरा सुहिणा तमामु जेके पिक्चर्स हुआ, या I have written entire biographies which I had to cut out. But so it was a balancing act, because we had to make sure. See, asanji, as it is, तव्हां महांगी project हुई करण लाइ, and we had a limited budget, okay, which was still a lot, but it was limited. So we had a fixed number of pages, and in those pages, do we have more pictures? Do we have more text? So it was a balancing thing. So this is finally what we came up with. So in the process, what we did was we covered the length and breadth of Sindh as a province, सूबे जे हिसाब सां. And we also covered the whole of its history. इन में पर्सनैलिटीज़ बि अची वियूं. हिस्ट्री में जेके तमामु इंट्रस्टिंग, मुंहिंजे हिसाब सां तमामु जेके इंट्रस्टिंग दौर रहिया आहिनि या तमामु इंट्रस्टिंग वाक़िया रहिया आहिनि, उहे बि मूं आंदा आहिनि हिन किताब में. त ही सभु शयूं हुयूं. पोइ जीअं मिसाल तौरु हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स हुआ, जीअं फरासी चइबो, या or even recipes. Geeta she was really into food. So she said we must have food in the book, Sindhi, and we were very clear that this is not a Sindhi recipe book. Uha gal kane, and it has to come in appropriately. ये ना है तो बस थोपजन की जो कम कुछ कुछ. We didn't want to do that, but so we brought in food and folk tales, folk tales also, which are such an integral part. खास करे Shahja Beth में, Shahji poetry में, the folk tales play such an important role. So we brought in the folk tales also. So it was a real delight to work on this book. It was really lovely.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, I do read a lot about Sindh, but there were many people that I read in your book were really, very, very insightful, very brief, but still very, very insightful and thoughtful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it would be wonderful to have all that was left out to be published and to be available for everyone to read. That's a must.
Yeah, but how, Saz? I mean, I don't see a way right now,
I mean,
but anyway, maybe someday, maybe in another form.
वक्त ना है या publisher ना है?
No, in the sense that I would have to publish those separately, But misal taur tangi budhaya that I think the whole book we covered all of Sindh into 9 regions, Karachi, Hyderabad, Thatto, Tharparkar, वगैरह वगैरह. So each of those regions had about some 10, 12, 13, 14 sections, and total there were 126 sections in the whole book. Okay, and in my opinion, recipes ke chhadyo chango unan ji gal bhi hai, ya folk tales, but we could have had still more folk tales. But each of those sections, like one section on Kalora, one section on Talpur, each of those sections deserved an entire book in itself.
That's right.
So there is so much to write, so much to research, so much to write,
Right.
What can I say? And even the individuals, who have contributed to Sindhi history, each of them deserve, and some of them do already have books written about them. So entire books.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the books are written even in Sindhi language. But I mean, as a reader, I mean, I love your literature review, the reference that you bring about, in your books, in your writings. I mean, a lay person, a common reader like me, even I realize a lot needs to be written about these people.
So let me jump in here, Nidita. This is a beautiful work, let me tell you. I have my copy, my sister-in-law gifted me, and it sits in my drawing room. I think it's a piece that not only deserves showcasing, but it is also, to me, the way this book has been published and the great work that you guys have done. It's fantastic for young people.
Yes.
The college-going young individuals to kind of really have a kind of encyclopedia in a sense. So this serves that purpose too. So fantastic work. I cannot compliment you more on that.
Thank you.
How did you come up with the name?
I don't know. It was just like just one of those creative ideas that came up. And I had been. It was a name. Like some books I have difficulty naming, like The Making of Exile, the book on partition. I just struggled with finding a name for it. Okay, but this name, this Sindhnama, it was there. I saved it for this kind of a book. And if you see the many histories of Sindh that have been written, Chachanama Khavati, you have Tarkhan Nama, Ketra and Frere Nama. There's also Frere Nama written about the conquest and so on. Not the conquest, but later. So so many books ending with Nama because this whole Persian influence in Sindh. Because Nama, Sindhi में जेकर असी नामो चऊं, जीअं सफ़र नामो चऊं था, but we have called it Nama in the classical Persian context, because that is what also Sindh inherited.
Yeah, मां जेकॾहिं इन खे ॻाल्हि खे अॻिते वधायां साज़, I mean, it seemed to be earlier looking at your book and Nandita's book, the books were heavily focused on partition period. I mean, the really the pull or the push for a lot of people to write, to speak, to express was the pain of the partition. It's I mean, the suffering, the untold stories, and all that. But your latest book, I mean, Sindhi Tapestry, and even her book on Sindhanama gives me a sense that we, in a way, are moving beyond the partition literature. I mean, the partition is still there. I mean,
right.
Many of us have, obviously, I mean, I was not there. I guess you people were not there too. But we inherited that, what Rita called the burden of, or you call the making of exile, and you call the stories of the vanished homeland. And I think I wrote one article in the news on that. So just the themes of the book, the titles of the books really give you a very intense kind of feeling. And it was only natural people like you would be writing on these issues. But these latest books give us a feel that now we are moving beyond the partition literature and partition stories, talking about today's Sindhis and Sindh. Is it a fair?
So for me, I think, of course, partition is always going to be part of the story because that's, at least for the next generation, that is very much a part of the history which has impacted all of us, even though we didn't experience it. It's very much part of our lives. And for me, it was a very big revelation because I'd never thought about it. My mother was quite old when I actually asked her to tell me the story, and we'd always lived away from the community. And I mean, I can understand Sindhi a little bit because I lived with my Sindhi grandparents for 3 years. And so they used to talk to each other in Sindhi, and somehow I kind of picked up a little, though they never spoke to me in Sindhi, and never got a chance to. And the sounds of the words are different. I can pronounce the words, but I unfortunately can't speak. So when I discovered it, some of the things I realized, and it's been such a big process. Like you said, it's been 8 years. When I started, I knew nothing, and I still feel I know very, very little. Because there's so much more. But one of the things I realized is that the stories have just been suppressed. They've been forgotten on both sides of the border. And I feel that we've just done the whole community such a disservice. And that's kind of like my mission, to just take out the stories and put them out, at least so that they'll be there, so if anyone is interested, because we lost everything. We lost all the stories. People forgot things. People didn't want to talk about them. And in many cases, they were deliberately, the histories were just torn up and thrown away. A lot of the Hindus, the Hindu Sindhis who achieved so much in Sindh, they are not remembered at all anymore in Sindh. They just literally don't exist anymore. And similarly, they don't exist in India either, because they're not native to what is left of India. So I just feel those things need to be documented. They need to be in the public domain so that they're not lost. So for me, that's very important. It's not really about partition so much as about retrieving a little bit of memory and honoring the people who lost everything. And yeah, so that's where I stand on this. It's not really, partition is just part of the story.
Yeah, नंदिता, तव्हांजे ख्याल में मतलब इहो चवणु मतलब जॾहिं सिंधी अदब खे पढ़ूं था, सिंध जे कहाणीकारनि खे, नावल निगारनि खे, त पार्टीशन विरहाङो जेको आहे उहो वॾो मौज़ू आहे। पर छाकाणि त सिंध जा पंहिंजा जेके मारूज़ी जेके हालतूं आहिनि, जेके डायनामिक्स आहिनि, उहे चेंज थिया आहिनि, ज़ाहिर आहे उहा जनरेशन जेका हुई अयाज़ जी, इब्राहिम जोए साहब जी, उहा कोन रही आहे। त जीअं सिंध जो डिस्कोर्स चेंज थियो आहे, उन जा नवां इशूज़, सिमिलरली तव्हां सम्झो त जेके हिंदुस्तान में सिंधी आहिनि, तव्हां जहिड़ा जेके राइटर्स आहिनि, उन्हनि जे मथां बि जेको माज़ी जो इन्फ्लुएंस आहे, उहो आहिस्ते आहिस्ते झको थो थिए, थधो थो थिए, ऐं जेके मौजूदा दौर जा करंट्स आहिनि उहे उनखे पुश कनि था।
हाँ, कंहिं हद ताईं इहा ॻाल्हि त लागू आहे, दिस इज़ ट्रू, बट नंबर वन आई वुड like to say that partition in a sense will always cast its shadow on the Sindhi community in India because they are displaced. Okay, हिते इंडिया में असांजो को सूबो कोन्हे, ओके, जिते असीं चई सघूं त हा असीं पंहिंजो मुल्क वञूं था, पंहिंजो ॻोठ वञूं था, there's no place of our own in India that we can call our own. We will always be displaced. And in fact, I was reading this one the other day, this celebrated author Jhumpa Lahiri, okay, and she talks about what it is like as a daughter of a Bengali family living in the US, okay. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to read out just a few words, because I really feel it applies not only to us Sindhi Hindus in India, but it may very well apply to your children later on, or their children, because in a sense it is there are parallels. So this is Jhumpa Lahiri writing in her book In Other Words, which she originally wrote in Italian, and it has been translated into English. And I read it just the other day and I thought of this. So she says, in a sense, I'm used to a kind of linguistic exile. My mother tongue, Bengali, is foreign in America. When you live in a country where your own language is considered foreign, you can feel a continuous sense of estrangement. You speak a secret, unknown language, lacking any correspondence to the environment, an absence that creates a distance within you. And then she writes, and this is true for the second generation, maybe not for your generation, maybe not even your children, maybe the next generation, but it definitely applies to, I think, my generation. In my case, there is another distance, another schism. I don't know Bengali perfectly. I don't know how to read it or even write it. I have an accent, I speak without authority, and so I have always perceived a disjunction between it. As a result, I consider my mother tongue, paradoxically, a foreign language too. Now, I mean, it's a bit much for me to say that I consider Sindhi a foreign language, but I can really relate to what she's saying. Changa Mab, I learned Sindhi very late in life. My parents, like the way Saz's grandparents would talk in Sindhi among each other and not talk to her. My parents did that with my sister and I, But only when I started doing this work, then I made the attempt to speak Bhagal, Tutal, Sindhi. I was a bit shameless and somehow it improved over the years. And Anyaba, it's very far from perfect. Machuku kandi aya. And if you can see, I can't express my complex thoughts in Sindhi. Then I lapse back into English. So this kind of thing, this sense of distance with a certain sense of alienation, with your environment, this will hold true in India. But there are two things happening also. One is that there are also other Sindhis who live in more Sindhi-centered or Sindhi-dominated neighborhoods, like Ulhasnagar huje, ya Bairagarh huje, ya ॿिया केतिरा अहिड़ा इलाइक़ा आहिनि इंडिया में, उते अञा बि ॿार सिंधी में ॻाल्हाइनि था. ओके, तो what has happened with me, say, would be different. What has happened with them is different. So maybe over there, I don't know, maybe it may happen to them after a couple of generations, maybe not also. Okay, we don't know. Time will tell. हिकिड़ी इहा ॻाल्हि आहे. ॿी ॻाल्हि छा आहे त also Sindhis are, like I have or others have, Rita ahe, we have married outside the community, So then again the sense of identity gets diluted. So that's just how it is. But on the other hand, ॿिया अहिड़ा बि आहिनि जेके अञा सिंधी सां शादी कनि था त उन्हनि जा ॿार अञा सिंधी रहंदा. So you have all sorts of things going on at the same time. It's an interesting situation.
Right. Saz and Nandita and Sohail, I must tell you, I see a lot of comments,
Okay.
which somehow technically I'm not able to bring them on the screen. My, you know, uh, problem. So one thing that I would like to read is from Inamullah Sheikh. Inamullah Sheikh is a former secretary of Sindhi Adbi Board in Hyderabad, a very accomplished writer. काफी सारा उन्हें किताब लिखे हैं. He
अरे
writes in,
मेरा मानवाना दोस्त बहन
oh
सलाम
yes,
इनाम साहब.
yeah. So Inam writes, in today's global world, culture, technology, intellectual interactions can play a pivotal role in bringing Sindhi closer to each other all over the world. So I think probably same thing, the way books are connecting us, Sas. I mean, like your effort to compilation of this book, in which like I got to know so many people which I had no clue.
Yeah. I also felt that sense of building a community and, now growing that community and making it, and increasing the scope of working together and telling people the stories that they haven't heard, which we feel that should be shared. So I really, I'm so grateful to have, to be a part of something like that. And of course,
Yeah.
I think it starts with Nandita because, well, I think it does because, I got a lot from her when I started writing. She gave me a lot of books and she gave me a lot of guidance. And that's when I realized that, there are so few of us. We need to work together. We need to be a community, and that will help us to share our stories more effectively.
Well, the way I see it, Saz, I mean, your books have helped me as well, and I see us all just as, building blocks in the same wall, you know. So really, that's all we can do is help each other in that to build the wall higher. I mean,
Right.
in a good way,
Right. So I also like to read one more comment from Shahzad Ahmed, and Shahzad is from Toronto, and he writes, "Must have been a tough task putting so much in one book." And good work, Nandita. Agree with Saz that the stories left should be published in one way or other way. So, I mean, I see a lot of Sai Feroz Rusani Sahab, and I mean, lot of friends are.
Yeah, he said blog. He said blog. And I do think blog is a great way to publish because then anyone, anywhere in the world can see it, just somebody who happens to be surfing can just come across it. And I think that's a great way to have your work published.
Yeah.
So you
So
could maybe think about doing that. These are all over the world. I mean, I remember this.
Yeah. So these
Sorry.
three women, Saz, Nandita, and Rita.
Yeah, I know. I'm really missing Rita actually, Mushtaq. Anyway,
So,
but I guess
yeah, it was a tough call to have all three of you at one place because everyone has done so much work. Really, I wouldn't want to miss out on some of the aspects. So we thought we'll do a separate session with her, and I hope she'll be. So I think you three people. I mean, my memories or impression of writers in India were largely Sindhi men. I mean, apart from a couple of women Sindhi poets, or one or two musicians, but largely impression that we had back in Sindh was all Sindhi writers in India are Sindhi men. There are no women writers as such, But in last 10, 15 years, the three of you, the kind of scholarly work that you have produced is really amazing.
Thanks for saying that, Mushtaq. But I should also tell you that there are many more writers who have come up. I mean, there was also from before. There was Dr. Subhadra Anand who wrote about Sindhis. Then there was Anju Makhija, Menka Shivdasani who translated Sindhi poetry into English. And now there is so many more. And I can't tell you. मुझे एडी खुशी थी जॾहिं मां ॾिसां थी त community एडी वधी वई है. And so many more people. But you're right. It's a interesting thing that I see more of many of the people are women, and I don't know why that is. Maybe Sindhi men are very caught up with pursuing, making a living and things like that. But I'm not saying there aren't. There are still a few Sindhi men who are interested in research and history and so on. But for some reason, I don't know, the bulk of the writers these days have been women.
Right. Sohail, I mean, I hope के मां तव्हांखे कटियां कोन पियो ऐं
No, I
so
think
Sorry, I lost my connection, so I just moved to another room. Hopefully, this will work.
no. This time the connection is better. But we're not having any problems, So
so far, I think things are going well. I want to also read some comments. There's Ghulam Farooq Sunro on Facebook. Title named Sindhi Nama for your book is beautiful. So
Thank you.
Compliment. And Subhash Bijlani, which I think maybe we can dive into this set of conversation, and he brings that up. Much of the recent published literature of Sindh in India is about reconnecting with the past and preserving our culture through memories. Connecting with our roots by recalling stories is a must. Moving forward, the waters of the river that got divide into two streams need to come together. Time must come when we can share our common heritage across the divide. So he's kind of challenging us here. Any reflection?
Well, I think Saz is related to Subhash Bitlani. He's your relative, I think. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we are very much related. Sorry, what did you say? I should.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a little bit thought-provoking in a sense that the divide that happened with the partition, I think the reference is here where he's saying time must come when we come and share our common heritage across the divide. And
yeah, that's a lovely thought. And I think that's what we are doing actually now.
Exactly. That's really, if I look at both of your work, that is exactly what you have done. And I think that's the great service. And speaking of that divide, and something came to my mind that maybe as a future project, in a sense that again we tend to draw these cultural or religious boundaries, or the physical boundaries that unfortunately we have been divided into. How do we overcome this? How do we build that bridge across? Have you two considered writing about some other Sindhi characters who may not be Hindu, who may be Muslim characters, like Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai can be a good subject to have a very elaborate, good book on. And writing skills like you have can really bring him into the international sphere, right? So something like that, or a great political leader like Rasul Baksh Paliju. Why not someone like you write about him?
So what you're saying is actually all these are great ideas. In fact, as it happens, I have like I don't know, I can't even say half finished, but it's like I've done some work on a biography of Shah Latif. So, and I do want to showcase his life, his philosophy, his poetry to people in India, because people say, "Oh, we know about Shah Latif," but what do they know? They don't really know much about the details of his life or the beauty of his poetry or things like that. So I want to showcase that. So you're right, I do want to do this. And at one time, I also did want to do a book on the history of the Sindh nationalist movement. Okay, I wanted to do that, but now I believe somebody has just done that. In any case, it would have been difficult.
Who has done that?
I'll have to check. I'll in fact forward you the same book. Somebody has done a book which covers the history of Sindh, starting from Mohenjo-daro. Boy, he Sindhi nationalist struggle जो घणो ही उनमें सुपर ऐं मां मूं रुगो इंडेक्स पढ़ियो आहे पर इंडेक्स मां ईअं लॻे थो त काफ़ी तफ़सील में विया आहिनि नालो मूंखे हींअर यादि नथो अचे
Yeah, maybe you're referring to a book which I think Saz Matthew Cook also made a reference in one of the emails about. There's a woman, I'm forgetting her name too. She's a woman writer of the book, right?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not 100% it seems
Take
to be a man. Anyway, but see, the thing is, for me to do a book like that, it's very difficult sitting in India. छाकाणि इंटरव्यू जे वठां या उते वञी लाइब्रेरी में रिसर्च कयां सिंध में अची त ऑल दैट इज यू कैन यू नो व्हाट इट्स लाइक इट्स इम्पॉसिबल इहा ॾुखियाई आहे बट आई हैव ऑल्सो हाउ शैल आई पुट इट if I can't do it in the present day, I can go back in time. So I am very interested in Sindhi history. Okay. And I'm not, it's not something that I'm only confining myself to Sindhi Hindu history. Not at all. Not at all. Okay. So, you know, for example, I'm looking right now at the pre-colonial period. It's a very interesting period. Yeah. It's a very interesting period. And even I'm focusing on Muslims or focusing on Hindu. I'm just focusing on Sindh. That is the crux of it.
Yeah, I think yes, Saz, please go ahead.
I was saying that, you know, for me right now, before I come to this, what Subhash mentioned, I still haven't finished making my best effort at connecting Indian people with Sindhi history or the Sindhi past, you know, just creating more sense of who the Sindhis really are. Because in India, Sindhis are seen through very shallow, you know, caricatures. And there are many reasons for that. And it's not easy to get beyond that because a lot of those caricatures there are examples which reflect them, you know, there is a reality behind them. So for me, it's really important. And now what I'm doing, one of the things I'm working on is trying to, similar to what Nandita said, go back a little bit before, you know, starting from the Mughal period and I'm trying to work on a mainstream book, which brings it's a story of a family which starts in Multan and comes, or you know, down to the present day where there are members of the family in different parts of the world. And I also very much want to do a children's book. I haven't started doing that yet, but that's something I really want to do because I think children need to hear these stories and feel connected to the cultural heritage.
Right. नंदिता मूंखे हिकिड़ो तव्हांखां सुवालु पुछिणो हुयो उहो मां तव्हांजा बि जेके ॿ किताब पढ़िया या ॿियो जेको जनरली शयूं पढ़ां थो उन में जॾहिं पार्टीशन जी ॻाल्हि अचे थी त उन में जेका सिंध जे अंदरि जेका डिवाइड आहे सिंधी मुस्लमान जी हिंदूअ जी या पॉलिटिकली जेके ॿई धुरियूं अपार्ट थी बीठियूं वेल बिफोर partition, you know, मुस्लमान हिकिड़े पासे कांग्रेस में हिंदू मुस्लमान सभई मुस्लिम लीग में लार्जली, you know, ऐं हिंदू सिंधी जेके कांग्रेस में उन एस्पेक्ट खे उहा जेका डिवाइड आहे बिटवीन द सिंधीज़ ऑन रिलीजियस कम्यूनल लाइन्स उनखे हिकु वॾो फैक्टर नथो करे पेश कयो वञे त भई बिहाइंड के एॾे वॾे तइदाद में सिंधी जेको लॾे विया सिंध छॾे विया यू नो जस्ट टू से के जेके माण्हू इंडिया मां आया उन्हनि अची हालतूं तंग कयूं नवाबशाह में जहिड़ा कराया कराची में फसाद कराया एंड दैट बिकेम अ रीज़न के माण्हू आई मीन एज अ रीडर ऑफ हिस्ट्री एज अ राइटर डू यू थिंक इज़ अ फेयर असेसमेंट के सोलली तव्हां जेकॾहिं माण्हू इहो नतीजो कढनि
न न मां ईअं कॾहिं कोन चवंदसि त सोलली उहे ई हुआ जीअं मुहाजिर चइजे उर्दू स्पीकिंग चइजे जेको बि चइजे त आई वोंट से दैट दे वर द ओनली फैक्टर ऐं इनफैक्ट मूं पंहिंजे किताब जे प्रोलॉग में इहो बि ॾेखारियो आहे त जीअं उहो दैट divide went on widening, you know, the two communities kept getting more and more separated till the time of partition. So wo thyo, and you can't say Sindh alone was like that. Chakar, this was communal politics, it was happening throughout India. Chango Sindh ji panji history hui and it played out in this particular way in Sindh. Chango to wo ho the same. And in fact when some Sindhis attribute, they say, oh, we are anti-Muslim, they'll say, oh, we are anti-Muslim because of what we experienced during partition. But I also think that the partition का very anti-Muslim हुआ यार, you know. So you can't lay everything at the door of partition. I don't like that. I don't like that you lay everything at the door of partition, number one. And number two, that the partition, that the reason Hindus left Sindh was only because of the Muhajirs. Although that was a, what shall we say, it was a proximate cause. If it was not the ultimate cause, it was a proximate cause.
I mean, in a more immediate cause, maybe you can,
Yeah, right.
But Saz, I mean, can I ask you same question? I mean, it is political, but I think it's a historical question in the sense. I mean, let me rephrase it for you. The general conclusion that a lot of Sindhi writers in Sindh draw that why did Sindhi Hindus left Sindh in large numbers was because the migrants who came from India, they created such situation. Or some people even in southern Sindh, they believe, hey, this was a conspiracy. This was designed in a way to push the affluent, Sindhi Hindus, so though their lands and businesses and homes could be taken away by the outsiders.
Saz, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. Saz has muted. Yeah.
Sorry. I don't think it was planned. It probably nobody really expected that it was going to happen the way it did happen. But when it started, the force was so strong that there was nothing that could stop it. I think I mean, that's what I think. I don't think there was a conspiracy. I think it just started happening. And once something like that starts happening, it's like the pandemic. You can't stop it because the force is so strong. And then, it brings out the worst in everyone, and it spreads. And at some point, the government was supporting it. At least the government wasn't. Maybe the law-keeping forces initially just could not. They didn't have the strength to, they didn't have the resources to stop what was happening. So I think it's just one of those things that could not be stopped. I don't think it was. What do you think, Nandita? Do you think it was a conspiracy?
See, Subho Gyanchandani and Kamla Hiranand both have written in their memoirs that they heard news of a plot. To start violence in Karachi so that the Hindus would want to leave, so that it would open up housing for the Muhajirs. Now, I don't think they anticipated the scale of the violence. Like you said, that once they started it just, it
went out of control.
City, number one. And number two, what happened was that there had been so many months of tension for Hindus living in many places other than Karachi. So for them, this was the last straw. For them, they felt, oh, now we are no longer safe in Sindh. Oh, nikri gaya.
Yeah, पर नंदिता गॾो गॾु ॾिस न, मतिलबु जेका सिंध जी लीडरशिप आहे, मां तो ॻाल्हि कयां सिंध जी लीडरशिप, हिंदू हुजे मुस्लमान हुजे, हुननि में कॉमन ग्राउंड किथे हुयो? What was their where was their vision? I mean, एॾे वॾे ओड़ाह में, एॾे वॾे बाह में पाण खे ॿई गॾिजी करे विझनि पिया, हू हिन पासे छिकीन, हो हिन पासे छिकीन, ऐं ॿियो जेको ब्रिटिश जेको बॉम्बे प्रेसिडेंट सां गॾिजण जो एक्सपीरियंस हुयो फ्रॉम 47 to 1935, उहो जेको 90 years गुज़रिया सिंध जा with I mean, it really created a new political establishment within Sindh, right? It was an entirely new experience for Sindhi Hindus.
Right.
The connectivity with the Bombay, which was in a way free from the dominance of Sindhi Vadero and
to some extent. Finally, in Sindh is also separated it was separated by some 300-400 miles from Bombay. But Sindh mein Sindhi Vadera hi hunan raj kaya na. In the Behradin ji gal thi karya. But whether it was a Sindh court or Sindhi bureaucracy, hute Hindun jo zor ho. So it was a bit of both, It was a bit of both. And you're right. At the end, मां सत्यतालियन जी ॻाल्हि थी करियां त at the end रुगो थोड़ा ॼणा हुआ, मिसाल तौर GM सिंध, जेठमल परसराम ऐं one other community you are missing out, Jamshed Nasr Manji Mehta. हाँ हाणे इत्तेफाक बन चइजे because it shows their mindset. They were all friends from the Theosophical Society, okay, which was a modern take on Sufism, in my opinion. Chango. So these people went out and they tried to spread peace. They tried to tell Sindhi Hindus, don't panic, don't leave home, and they were trying to also make sure there was no violence. But Baki, nobody was interested. Baki, everyone was caught up in the communal frenzy of the moment. Whether it was Hindu or Muslim.
Yeah, I mean, what I really assessed, I mean, my reading of their period, I mean, there was no, kind of when the countries and the people go in any conflict situation, there's a hotline or kind of mechanism where they could talk. I failed to find out mechanism where Sindhi Hindus and Muslims were talking to each other. The political forces, I mean, the Sindhi leadership of Muslim League, Sindhi leadership of the Congress, where were they talking?
Yeah, that's right. The silence. And there's a comment also, which I think reflects some of what was happening. Shehzad Ahmed says that even partition wasn't planned properly. Everything just happened in a chaotic way, and everything went out of control, which I think is it's probably part of what. But one of the things that I feel, and I always talk about this. I always want everyone to appreciate this, that the Hindus left, and they all left. It was, it's not true that all left, but when those who left, it was like they were just doing it as one people. It was amazing because everybody just behaved in the same way. They left and they got their act together and they kept moving. There was a period of feeling hurt and bewildered, confused, but the way it was just heroic, and I don't think that's been appreciated. I don't think that's been given the respect that it should be, because people just kept moving and they just didn't stop until they had regained something for themselves, and they did it in very, very honest, very sensible ways. I just think that's a wonderful story. It's not been told enough. I think it's not been appreciated enough.
So, Sas, picking up on that, what do you think was the core value, or what did you see in Sindhis so unique that they had the sense of this carry on, still the sense of the belonging? What inspired? What is the core values that you see that?
I think it comes from the spiritual nature of the people, the Sufi thinking or the Sikh thinking, or the, you could call it Vedanta. It's just that what you have, what is now, that is what you work with, and you use that and move ahead. I think that's what it was. And do what you can. Just do what you can. Don't complain about, don't blame anyone. Don't, accuse anyone. You do what you can. And I see that. And, I feel so grateful to have that kind of heritage and to have that kind of influence.
Right. Nandita, Saz, also want to just say one thing out there. I mean, during the partition, yes, a large, I mean, if the Hindu population was around 35% of Sindhi population, or 25%, if I'm correct.
27 around, I think.
27, between 25 and 35. But if you see the Sindhi Hindus living on southern part of Sindh, Badin, Tharparkar, Mirpur Khas, Tandualaya, parts of Hyderabad, even Sangar. I mean, mostly जिनके पाण चऊं त जेके ब्राह्मण न हुया, जेके upper class and middle class न हुया, जेको lower class हुयो, हेठो तबको हुयो, they did not move. I mean, जेके भील हुया, कोली हुया, मेंगवाड़ हुया, they I mean, how do you explain? Like, what's your take on that?
So, Mushtaq, I really feel another book needs to be done only on that community, because they also the mainstream Sindhi Hindus, they feel a little different from these Sindhi Hindus. Okay, number one. And these Sindhi Hindus also feel the same. you know, because they are more tribal, or they come from a different section of society, and the two don't identify so easily with each other. But they'll say "Asi ta vane aayu," things like that. Okay, so I really feel that this other aspect of the Sindhi Hindu community, okay, and their attachment to the land, their attachment to their livestock, घणनि खे लाइफ स्टॉक हुई, माल हो, त उन्हनि चयो असीं माल जे करे एक्चुअली वो आई रेड वन न्यूज़पेपर आर्टिकल फ्रॉम 47 or 48 saying that we will migrate if you let us take our livestock. The government said असीं how can we facilitate that, ये की थी तो. So these are the things, and they have a lot, which I think Rita has done work in that, no, on this borders and uh, migrations and movements and so on. So she's done work on the Indian counterpart, you know. So I feel work needs to be done on the Sindhi counterpart in Pakistan.
No, that is so true. And honestly, Nidita, I've grown up in Karachi
Ji.
all my life. So in a way, that kind of divide that you're talking about also exists within the Sindh.
Yeah.
People do not know about the people of Tharparkar or those areas and their lifestyles. And honestly, I went back from US and I did some work, volunteer work and some social work, and I got connected. And the first time I visited those areas, so Mengwad, Bhil,
Ji.
Holis of Sindh is a completely amazing place. There are cities still where 50% of the population is Hindu uh, and Muslim, and the harmony. I came back and I told a journalist in Chicago that does anybody even realizes that even today there are cities like that in Sindh?
Mithi. Mithi is a good
Mithi
example.
आहे
Yeah.
जो
Even
and
Umarkot, city
उमरकोट
itself.
आहे इस्लाम कोट आहे जंहिंजो नालो पोइ इस्लाम कोट ओरिजिनल नालो त कुझु ॿियो हो
अच्छा.
जिते हिंदू ऐं सिंधी अॼु बि गॾु रहनि था ऐं तव्हां लाइफ स्टॉक जी ॻाल्हि कई उते माण्हुनि जो जेको माल आहे दी लाइफ
जी.
स्टॉक दे लीव इट दे डोंट वॉक अराउंड कंदो आहे मजाल आहे की केरु कंहिंजी चोरी
अच्छा.
करे दे डोंट स्टील
Strong sense of community then.
strong sense of community and their relationship to the livestock, like you said, is incredible because we did a water well project there. The first thing they ask us that what about our livestock?
Hmm.
How they're going to get the water? So we
Right.
had to create specific channels and things like that for the livestock, where thousands and thousands of the uh, cows and goats and camels
Yeah,
came.
no, thank you, Sohail, for sharing that. Before we leave, we probably have maybe 5 minutes more. I have actually very two brief questions, very brief. One is, Saz, I mean, you've been able to visit Karachi twice, I think fortunately we made both the times, So do you think if a relationship between Pakistan and India becomes less tense and both the countries allow the writers and, authors to talk to each other, do that. I mean, people would love to have a book launching ceremony of your book in Karachi and Hyderabad. I'm such a shame that there's a book on Sindh and not being launched in Sakkar and Khairapur, Ladkhana,
Yeah, yeah,
Similarly, Nandita's books in the Nama, unji to mohrat thiyan kape Ladkhana mein, ai kedi une khushi thi,
Thank you.
it's a shame that,
yeah.
Because of this politics 70
Yeah.
years down road,
In
So,
fact, Geeta Simoes really wanted to have a book launch in Sindh. It was her dream. But anyway, I don't know when that will happen.
yeah.
But
So,
yeah, I definitely pray for the day when the border is less grisly and, we can just drive across without anyone stopping us. And let's all hope that'll happen one day. We've seen the world change in so many ways. I mean, we were there when the Berlin Wall fell, and maybe that'll happen with us. It doesn't look very likely at this moment, but let's hope it does. Let's pray it does.
Yeah, amen.
yeah, bilkul. And then, I mean, I mean, one of the significant impact of your writings and books is that how beautifully and inspiringly it has inspired the debates, even among people like me and Suhail and so many others who really want to talk about these issues. So that's the impact of the books and the research on the people, on our lives, you know. So I really feel if we could do the inaugurations and have writers like you speaking to people, we could revive, we could bring our communities together, people in Sindh and India, Sindhis.
मुश्ताक तई बुक लॉन्च जी ॻाल्हि था करियो ऐं तमामु सुठी आइडिया आहे मुंहिंजे लाइ त आई वुड लाइक टू कम टू सिंध टू डू रिसर्च I can't even do that, I would love, I would love to go to Bitra. Even I've not been able to do that yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, Rita bhi yahi gaal kare pai. I mean, she been wanting to go to Sindh for many years now. I muke samajh mein nahi ndo like what threat possibly people like you could be to anyone. I mean, so.
But afsos ji gaal hai chakar things have been deteriorating, as you know, for so many years. Penny Air India closed their flights. Now PIS closed their flights. Now there are no direct flights. You have to go via some other place, via Sri Lanka or via the Gulf or somewhere.
But today's world, nobody's traveling anyway. So we just have to wait and see how things, evolve. And let's see. Let's hope. Let's put out the good energy.
So with this, I really want to thank you both for joining us late in the evening. I know it's very late in India. It's morning here in DC and in Missouri. But I think this was a wonderful discussion. A lot of people were able to join us, and a sincere thanks to both of you. Tahanji, meherbani, Nandita Saz.
Thank you very much for all the effort and for all the arrangements. It was almost as good as meeting, and I hope we will meet soon.
Oh, yes.
God bless.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Changu.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And great meeting both of you. And this recording will make sure that it is published as well. And I'm sure many friends who were not able to join us today can benefit from this discussion. And again, keep up the great work, and we'll love to have more conversations.
Thank you. And please convey our thanks to the rest of Friends of Sindh Society. Please do that.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.